Hi kids! It's time to learn about landforms with Leo and Max.
Let's go, guys!
The Earth's surface is extremely diverse no matter where you are in the world. It is composed of many different types of landforms, making each part of it unique. From small ponds, tiny islands, to enormous mountains, the land of our planet is truly fascinating to learn about. Landforms are natural features of the Earth's surface that are formed over many years of erosion, weathering, and other Earth forces. Also, there will be fun facts about landforms at the end of this video, so stay tuned. First, canyon. A deep, narrow valley with steep sides and often with a stream flowing through it. Canyons are created by erosion. Over thousands or millions of years, a river's flowing water erodes soil and rocks to form a valley. The largest and most famous canyons have been cut through dry areas by swift streams fed by rain or melting snow from wetter areas. The walls remain steep and rough because there is a little rainfall or surface water to wear them down. Cape. A cape is a point of land that extends out into the sea or a lake. A cape usually represents a marked change in the trend of the coastline, which makes them prone to natural forms of erosion, mainly tidal actions. This results in capes having a relatively short geological lifespan. Capes can be formed by glaciers, volcanoes, and changes in sea level. Erosion plays a huge role in each of these methods of formation. Delta. A delta is a deposit of sediment at the mouth of a river that accumulates as the river flows into a standing body of water such as a lake or ocean. Because sediment tends to be rich in nutrients, deltas become fertile wetlands inhabited by diverse wildlife. The movement of river erodes soil and bedrock from the land and carries these particles called sediment downstream. The speed of a river slows when it meets a standing body of water such as a lake or ocean. It consequently loses the force needed to carry materials such as sand, silt, and clay, and these particles settle on the riverbed. Over time, sediment accumulates and forms wetland. Deserts. Deserts cover more than 1/5 of the Earth's land area, and they are found on every continent. A place that receives a small amount of rain per year is considered a desert. Deserts are part of a wider class of regions called drylands. These areas exist under a moisture deficit, which means they can frequently lose more moisture through evaporation than they can receive from annual precipitation. In most places, clouds and water vapor hold in heat, sort of like a blanket. But deserts don't have enough clouds and water vapor to do this. Some deserts are always cold. In fact, the biggest desert in the world is Antarctica. Even though it's covered in snow and ice, it rarely rains or snows in Antarctica, which makes it a desert. Glacier. A large body of ice moving slowly down a slope or valley or spreading outward on a land surface. Glaciers are formed when snow is packed down into ice. Snow crystals accumulate year by year in areas where the temperatures never become high enough to completely melt the snow and ice. When a large amount has accumulated, the snow is under great pressure from the weight. Eventually, the snow becomes packed so tightly together that it turns into ice. Island. An island is an area of land that is surrounded by water. Islands can be found in all bodies of water, from streams and rivers to lakes, seas, and oceans. The two main types of islands are oceanic islands and continental islands. Oceanic islands are the tops of underwater volcanoes. An oceanic island forms when a volcano erupts deep under the ocean and pushes the ocean floor upward into a mountain. The Hawaiian Islands are examples of oceanic islands. Continental islands are close to the continents. They are parts of the same land that makes up the continents. One way that continental islands form is by the flooding of valleys close to the coast. The valleys filled with seawater and the tops of nearby hills then become islands. Mountain. A mountain is a landform that rises high above its surroundings. Taller than a hill, it usually has steep slopes and a rounded or sharp peak. Mountains are rarely found alone or in groups called ranges. Some mountains were formed by the activity of volcanoes. Volcanic mountains made up of rock melt deep within Earth. The rock rose through Earth's surface or crust. It then flowed onto the surface in the form of lava, along with volcanic dust, and built up to form mountains. Volcanic mountains are typically steep and cone-shaped. Other mountains were formed by movements within Earth's surface or crust. The theory called plate tectonics explains this type of mountain building. Earth's surface is divided into huge pieces called plates which move very slowly. The continents sit on top of the plates and move with them. At times, the plates collide, forming the rock upward. Peninsula. A peninsula is a piece of land that is almost entirely surrounded by water, but is connected to the mainland on one side. Peninsulas can be very small, sometimes only large enough for a single lighthouse. Lighthouses often sit on peninsulas near rocky coastlines to warn sailors that they are getting close to land. Peninsulas can also be very huge. Most of the U.S. state of Florida is a peninsula that separates the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. Plain. A plain landform is a broad area of flat sweeping landmass that generally does not change much in elevation. It is relatively flat within a common area. This type of landform is generally lower than the surrounding landmass and may be found along an inland or coast. It exists on every continent and covers more than 1/3 of the world's total land area. This type of landform is mostly suitable for settlement and agricultural purposes. In agriculture, plain landforms are more suitable for farming than plateaus or mountains. Plain landforms are postulated to have been formed from flowing lava deposited from hills and mountains by ice, water, wind, or erosion. Hill. A hill is a piece of land that rises higher than everything surrounding it. It looks like a little bump in the earth. Since they're higher than everything around them, hills are good places to get a nice view. Hills are easier to climb than mountains. They are less steep and not as high. But like a mountain, a hill will usually have an obvious summit, which is also known as its highest point. Natural hills are formed all the time by different types of geologic activity. One of these activities is faulting, which happens because the rocks underneath the Earth's surface are constantly moving and changing the landscape. Hills formed by faulting can eventually become mountains. Hills are also formed because of erosion, which happens when bits of rock, soil, and sediment gets washed away and placed in a pile somewhere else. Rainforest. A rainforest is an area of tall, mostly evergreen trees and a high amount of rainfall. Rainforests are Earth's oldest living ecosystems, with some surviving in their present form for millions of years. They are incredibly diverse and complex, home to more than half of the world's plant and animal species. Rainforests' rich biodiversity is incredibly important to our well-being and the well-being of our planet. Rainforests help regulate our climate and provide us with everyday products. Valley. Valleys are depressed areas of land scoured and washed out by the conspiring forces of gravity, water, and ice. Rivers and streams make most primary valley cuts, carving steep-walled sides in a narrow floor that from afar looks like the letter V. The gradient of the river, how quickly it drops, helps define the steepness of the sides and the width of the floor. Mountain valleys, for example, tend to have near vertical walls and a narrow channel, but out on the plains, the slopes are shallow and the channel is wide. As waters wind toward the sea, they add to natural twists in the land by stripping sediment from the outsides of bends and dumping it on the insides. The bulk of the rock and dirt is dredged from the bottom of the channel, a process called downcutting that can ultimately lead to deep, slender chasms. Volcano. A volcano is an opening in a planet crust through which molten rock, hot gases, and other materials erupt. Volcanoes often form a hill or mountain as layers of rock and ash build up from repeated eruptions. Volcanoes are classified as active, dormant, and extinct. Active volcanoes have a recent history of eruptions. They are likely to erupt again. Dormant volcanoes have not erupted for a very long time but may erupt at a future time. Extinct volcanoes are not expected to erupt in the future. Inside an active volcano is a chamber in which molten rock called magma collects. Pressure pressure builds up inside the magma chamber, causing the magma to move through the channels in the rock and escape onto the planet's surface. Once it flows onto the surface, the magma is known as lava. Some volcanic eruptions are explosive, while others occur as a slow lava flow. Volcanoes are found on both land and the ocean floor. Now, it's time for the fun facts. Did you know that the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, grows every year? Yup, you heard it right. Mount Everest is growing by 4 millimeters each year due to geological uplift. Did you know that the Amazon rainforest is often called the lungs of the earth because it produces over 20% of the world's oxygen supply thanks to all its trees? That's true, kids, so remember to take care of our trees. Did you know that the largest volcano on earth is Mauna Loa in Hawaii? From sea level, it is 4,169 meters high. However, under the sea, it also goes down for another 5,000 meters. Well, that's all I have for you about landforms today, kids. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified of new videos. Bye, friends!